Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to our fourth webinar in the series of Agreement to Action, which focuses on the GBF and its implementation. And we're going to be focusing today on connecting for change, amplifying the role of cities and regions in achieving global biodiversity and climate goals. I have a few housekeeping rules to make. Before I do that, just to let you know, my name is Ingrid Kutsia. I am the Director of Biodiversity, and I am based here in Cape Town at ICLEI's Global Cities Biodiversity Center. We are basically going to, with these series of webinars, the idea is to mobilize cities and regions to scale up local and subnational action. And it's about really focusing on how the local and subnational governments can and do contribute to translating the biodiversity plan, as we now know the Global Biodiversity Framework, into resolute national action supported by local and subnational governments. I would like to just take a moment and thank our partners for their support in convening with us these webinars. Our partners include the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Committee of the Regions in Europe, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN, United Nations Environment Programme, and Regions 4. And then specifically today, we are collaborating with Regions 4 in presenting and hosting this webinar. The housekeeping rules that I must just communicate to everybody is that as participants, you will see that you are muted. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat box. And hopefully we'll have time for the speakers, if not to respond verbally, but certainly to respond to your questions in the chat box. Please also note that, as you would have heard, the webinar is being recorded, and this is just so that we're able to share this recording with everybody afterwards. But also by participating in the webinar, we take it that you give your consent to be recorded. So as I've said, we are going to be addressing the importance of multi-level cooperation for policy action across different agendas as we journey from the previous biodiversity COP, COP15, and the COP28 last year, the climate COP, towards COP16 this year that is taking place in Cali in Colombia in just about 6 months' time in October this year, as well as the climate COPs that are taking place this year and next year. We are going to be showcasing best practices from cities and regions, and that will demonstrate their crucial role in not just supporting implementation, but also in capturing and recording and reporting and monitoring their actions. I will also just quickly share with you that we have 2 more webinars in our series. The next one is on the 28th of June on harnessing local solutions for biodiversity. And we will focus there on insights from some recent global dialogues on nature, water, and plastic, specifically the Oceans Conference and the Plastics Treating, the IN4 meeting. And then the last one we will be holding will be much later this year, and that is going to be held around what we call the countdown to Cali COP16, where we will showcase the participation of regions and their ambitions, and also those of cities. So to begin our webinar, it is my great honor to introduce Emmanuelle Pinault. She is the Department Director, Systems Transformation from the UNFCCC Climate Champions team. And she's going to be addressing us on behalf of Her Excellency Razan Al Mubarak, who's the president of the IUCN. The IUCN, incidentally, is a founding partner of CitiesWithNature and RegionsWithNature, and Her Excellency was also the COP28 high-level climate champion. Emmanuelle, I will hand over to you, and then after that, I will hand over to our moderator. But Emmanuel, your word now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and thank you, ICLE, Regions 4, UNEP, IUCN, and others for inviting me to this webinar. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And as you described, I'm here on behalf of Razan Al-Mubarak, who's still the COP28 champion until the end of the year, until COP29 in Azerbaijan. Just a note, by the way, to also introduce to this group the new champion from Azerbaijan, Nigar Arpadaray, who's been appointed earlier this year and who will work closely with Razan on the action agenda, which is the space of mobilization of non-state actors within the UNFCCC. It is my real pleasure to be with you today because Razan and all the Climate Champions team really makes a big priority and emphasis on nature in climate action. As you all know, that's obvious given her double hat of president of IUCN and high-level champion for COP28. You probably have noticed the very strong agenda around nature that happened in Dubai last year under Razan's leadership. And within this strong agenda, cities and regional governments had a very particular space and role. And I'm sure we will elaborate more on this during this webinar, but we were really proud as high-level champions to support numerous initiatives that help bring upfront the leadership of cities in climate action, particularly the Trump initiative, which was championed by ICLE and Regions 4 and others, obviously. That's on the city and multi-level action front. Some very strong outcome related to nature specifically. We've had, for example, big progress done at the national level in the partnership between the different CBD COP presidencies to advance the integration of nature within climate action, and particularly a better integration between NDCs and NBSAPs through this agreement between the UAE presidency, the Colombian presidency of the COP, and other key players in this field. And among those impressive outcomes at COP, we also had some big progress made on the topic of cities and nature. And with numerous initiatives and projects showcased, and the leadership of many mayors and regional leaders in bringing nature-based solutions at the forefront of their climate action. The high-level champions supported the creation of a new program called the Urban Nature Program that was co-launched with the World Bank and many other partners, that actually captures the action that was already happening in the field and in the ecosystem of non-state actors, including the excellent Cities with Nature program spearheaded by ICLE. We're really proud to have put this forward as a strong and prominent outcome at COP, and we're very keen to continue this year supporting your voices and your leadership in urban nature, and showing how, once again, local and regional governments are showing the way and inspiring national governments. This year, there are many opportunities to do so. Obviously, you mentioned, Ingrid, the COP16 in Cali, which be definitely a milestone. I also want to invite you to not forget COP29 in Azerbaijan, which will be, as all climate COPs now, a very important moment to progress more on multi-level action, and particularly on a topic that is of utmost interest of local and regional government, finance. So here, a lot of work, I think, to be done in that direction in the months to come. Finally, I would like to extend a call to everyone to join a new campaign that the champions have launched last year called Nature Positive for Climate Action, that really invites stakeholders, particularly from the private sector, but also local and regional government, to put nature at the heart of their climate action plans. This year, at the ICLE Congress in Sao Paulo in June, we will issue a specific call to action to invite mayors, governors, and local and regional leaders to more assertively include nature and nature-based solutions in their climate action plans, and consider their mitigation and adaptation strategy with nature-based solutions at their heart. So be ready to join us in this call. And again, thank you, ICLE and Regions Force and partners for having us in this webinar.
Emmanuel, thank you very much. And as always, some really exciting initiatives. And it's amazing to see the groundswell of movement towards these linkages between the biodiversity agenda and also the climate agenda, and the fact that cities and subnational governments are at the core of this very exciting movement. It's now my great pleasure to introduce a friend and partner, Jordan Harris, who is the Executive Director of Regions 4. Regions 4 is also a founding member of Regions with Nature, and he's going to moderate our webinar. So Jordan, I'm handing over to you and your able moderation. Thank you so much.
Great. No, thank you very much, Ingrid. It's a pleasure to be here today with so many friends and partners and colleagues to discuss this important issue in an important year that I think Emmanuel has very clearly laid out for us several of the milestones that we can look forward to this year. Because as we know, as our planet is facing dual crises, and these crises are very intricately interrelated and integrated, with accelerated biodiversity loss on the one hand, and on the other, an increase in our planet's average temperature and resulting increase in all kinds of extreme weather events and disruption to human and natural systems upon which we directly depend. In order to address these twin crises, we really do need to make stronger linkages between the nature and the climate agendas, not only in the international sphere, when we've seen clear calls, especially at this last climate COP28 at the end of the last year, calls for parties to work together, for example, in integrating their NBSAPs and their NDCs, but also on a subnational territorial level. It's clear that we really do need to see more action on the ground if we really want to accomplish our global goals. And we also know very clearly that cities and regions have invaluable information and insight that can raise the effectiveness of policy implementation and at the same time contribute to the achievement of these national commitments, such as NBSAPs, such as NDCs, and other targets set by various multilateral environmental agreements. To exemplify this, today we will hear from 3 subnational representatives from leading regions and cities who are going to share with us some of their best practices on climate and nature action, and how subnational governments are really leading innovators in the integration of the climate and biodiversity agendas through their actions on the ground. So without further ado, I'll introduce our first panelist today. It's my great pleasure to introduce Jean Lemire. Jean is Envoy for Climate Change, Northern and Arctic Affairs of the Government of Quebec in Canada, here to discuss the experience of Quebec. So over to you, Jean. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jordan. Hi, Ingrid. Dear friends, very happy to be here this morning for me, probably the afternoon for you. Really, really happy to share some of the work that we do in Quebec. Next slide, please. First of all, it's important to realize the importance of subnational government entities. I think that this is really the key, because we will not win, that battle if we don't work together. There's something really special because, for example, in climate and biodiversity, states and subnational government have specific powers that we have in our law, and that means that we are in charge for environment, for resources, transportation, land planning. And this is very, very important because we have a legal responsibility to act on climate and biodiversity. Next slide, please. I'm going to give you some example of what we do to support the policy implementation at national and local level. I'm going to start with climate. Next slide, please. It's a lot of reading, but the most important thing that you have to know is we have a plan for our green economy that goes until 2030. And to be honest, you can have the best plan, but if you don't have the money that will come with it, it's going to be very difficult to implement any kind of plan. So we're lucky we have $9 billion for now, and there's more to come. I know it's a lot of money, and I'm going to explain you how we get that money after, because this is the little trick here. Because we really want to do some action, very important action and investment to be sure that we will follow the Paris Agreement. So we have an implementation plan that goes from 2023 to 2028. And this is very important because every 2 years we will look at the result of all our action and see if it's working or not. If it's not working, then we will redo it or change it. But this is very, very important, to be flexible, also to be sure that what we want to achieve is happening. Few examples, our goal is to have 2 billion electrical vehicles on the road by 2030. It's looking good. It's looking really good. Of course, no more gas or diesel vehicles in 2035. Buses are also 65% of city buses and 55% of school buses by 2030. All the government cars will be changed for electrical, except for some pickup in some area that we have to keep. But anyway, that's a big, I think we have to give the example here. We will also have low carbon content in gasoline and diesel. This is also very important. Building heating emission will be cut by 50% by 2030. And for our building, it's going to be even 60%. We have some gas in, of course, in houses and all that. At least 10% will be coming from, little farm that where we treat all the shit and all that, to be sure that we make some renewable gas. And one thing very important also, we are now the co-chair of BOGA, the Beyond Oil and Gas Alliance, and we passed a law in Quebec to ban completely the exploration and exploitation of all fossil fuels. And this is very important. With the last COP, we finally had, the real text that said that we will have to go away from fossil fuels. So here we pass a law, not easy, but the law is there. And so no more exploration or exploitation of fossil fuels. How we do that, to be honest, it's because we have a carbon market, and this is the key. As you know, that carbon market is with California, and we started that in 2013, and we were able to have $14 billion from that carbon market, and we have a law. Again, we have to invest, that money in climate, to reduce our GHG emission. So this is the thing, you can have a good plan, but if you don't have the money, it's going to be very difficult to achieve it. So that permit to have financial support programs for businesses, organizations, citizens, very important also, to include the local government and cities. We gave money to cities for their action plan in climate, for example, and we share some expertise. So, we want to work in all levels, transportation, building, waste management, adaptation to climate change also. This is very, very important. Also, I think it's part of our value. It was very important for us to give money to others, so our international cooperation program is very, very important, and we're around $100 million that we gave to, you can see it from FAO to Jeff to Adaptation Fund, etc. And for us, it's really, really important. And we will be able probably to announce more at the COP16. And of course, it's important to work on mitigation and adaptation, but that includes as well nature-based solutions. If we look in biodiversity, we're really, next slide, please. For us, it's really, really important because we are bound by decree to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. And as you know, we host the UN CBD in Montreal since 1996. And we had the COP15, as you know, in December 2022. We were proud to announce an investment of $650 million to implement the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and we add to that another $100 million per year to protect waters. So we're really involved with our partner, of course, with ICLEI. We have the major group during the negotiation. We also start a task force with the HAC, the High Ambition Coalition, with California, Sao Paulo, Scotland, and others. And of course, we share the coordination of the Advisory Committee on Subnational Government with Regions 4. Next slide, please. Very important. We have to understand the role that we play. Sometimes, we think it's only the parties. No, we have to be around the table. We have to be part of the negotiation, and we have to be monitoring and reporting. And this is really, really important to ensure that we have a good accountability of all that. And it's part also of the data-driven decision-making that we have to do. If we don't have all the data, it's going to be difficult to take the best decision. So we work a lot with scientists, and for us, it's very, very important. It's important to share what we do with others also. This is the key, really, really. For example, in climate, everything is available, all the data, our GHG data, our target, and our progress as well. We use the Carbon Disclosure Project, and for us, it's very, very important to follow all the rules on that. Our nature plan with that $650 million will follow all the target of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So it's going to be, in a way, our own NBSAP for Quebec. And like I was saying, I think that at COP15 we will be able to announce, international cooperation in biodiversity. We will probably make a deal with the Jeff and the Newfoundland biodiversity. But I'm going to keep that for Kelly. Next slide, please. Just to conclude, it's very, very important. We should not underestimate our role. It's very important because right now UNEP really understand more and more our role, and this is the right timing to be around the table. And like I was with Ingrid in Bern with all the MEAs, and this is very important. They have to understand that we are really close to the public, and we have sometimes, in our case, the law that come with it for implementation. So it's very, very important. Same thing for people who were in Nairobi 2-3 weeks ago. We really feel that we have a real place around the table, and we have to take it. This is very, very important. And we will do the same with the ink process. And it's going to be very, very important, again, to be there, because the waste management is very, very close to cities and regions. So, and we're not alone, that's, again, very, very important, that all of government and all of society approaches is very, very, very important. We have to work with the indigenous youth, women, etc., to make really that strength around the table when it's time to decide, how we will implement. So the future will not be decided only by the UN parties. If timing is everything, I think that we must seize that opportunity now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, John, for walking us through not only some of the real innovative practices that are happening in Quebec and the way that you've been able to combine ambitious policy with ambitious resources as well, but also the importance of taking up that space, right? That strategic space for influence that Quebec has been leading on so well in the international sphere, and for leaving us with those powerful messages towards COP16 and COP29 and beyond. So thanks a lot, John. We will move on now. I'm very pleased to introduce you now to Peter Brastow. Peter is Biodiversity Coordinator from the City of San Francisco. So Peter, over to you to let us know the different ways in which you've been able to connect with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework in the City of San Francisco. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Really happy to be here. I'm going to share my screen. So let's make sure that that works. Can everybody see that? Is it loading?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, great. So really happy to be here. I realize this year is my 30-year anniversary of being involved in ecological restoration and stewardship in San Francisco. I've been doing this for a very long time. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about San Francisco, going to introduce you to what's going on here briefly, and then try to go through a few of the actions in the Global Biodiversity Framework and how they relate to what we're doing here. I only have 7 minutes, so I'm going to keep this moving. Let's see, next slide. There we go. So just context, you can see where California is, of course, on the west coast of North America, one of 35 global biodiversity hotspots. And the San Francisco Bay Area is kind of right there in the middle of California. You can see the tip of the San Francisco Peninsula and the city itself. 7 by 7, and the coastal mountains and valleys of the San Francisco Bay Area, home to 7 million people. So 250 years ago, San Francisco was, of course, a very different place, a wild landscape with incredible biodiversity, and also stewarded since time immemorial by the Ramaytush Ohlone people. And so in the modern era, we have probably less than 5% remaining of kind of what we call original natural habitat. But over the last 30 plus years, we have quite a legacy of ecological stewardship occurring on the part of our public agencies and nonprofit partners who work with them. And so this has been ongoing and involved thousands and thousands of people over the years in local ecological stewardship of San Francisco's natural habitats. Grasslands with wildflower meadows, like at the top of Twin Peaks, all kinds of different natural areas throughout the city. This is called Bayview Hill. And these places harbor still incredible, with less than 5% of our original natural habitat, incredible biodiversity, 500 species of birds, 500 species of native plants still on our little postage stamp of San Francisco. And so while we celebrate this incredible remaining biodiversity that we have, as I said, less than 5% of the natural lands, we have a lot of green, but maybe that green is not so biodiverse. So we have a long way to go to reach our 30 by 30. And so in 2021, we passed our 2020 Climate Action Plan, Paris Compliant Climate Action Plan, which now has 7 sectors, including a healthy ecosystems chapter, which has 7 strategies within the chapter and 32 actions. I'm going quickly, so I'm not going to ask you to read all of these, but this is just to give you a snapshot of the healthy ecosystems chapter of our Climate Action Plan. And so now I'm going to try to talk through a few of the actions in the GBF. So among the 23 targets, I did a back of the napkin analysis when I came back from Montreal and thought, well, I think about 17 of those 23 do apply to urban nature work and to our work in San Francisco. So I think that's really interesting. And so I'm going to show you a few today. Target 1, of course, is all about collaboration and participatory planning and management. And just a little over a year ago, the venerable 170-year-old California Academy of Sciences spearheaded this new collective impact organization called Reimagining San Francisco. So you can see some of the same logos in the that I had in the previous slide. We now have a 40-member strong inter-organizational group who are all working together to try to scale up this work to restore biodiversity and connect everyone to nature where they live in the city. And so for targets 2 and 3, of course, California, just like at the global level, with targets 2 and 3, also the White House has America the Beautiful, which has a 30 by 30 goal for the US, and then California as well, which also, of course, signed a bilateral agreement with Quebec in Montreal, which was really terrific. And so then at the city level, we have signed on to the C40 Urban Nature Accelerator, and we made that commitment. So we've got this 30 by 30 goal at every level. We also, within our climate action plan, we have an action to do a biodiversity action plan, which we have yet to do. Our Presidio, which is within our national park, has made incredible progress toward their own 30 by 30 within their land. And then, in fact, our 9-county Bay Area, so San Francisco is a city and county, but we have 9 counties within the region, has already reached 30% across the 9 counties. And so now it's 50% by 2050 is the regional goal. So for eliminating impacts of invasive alien species, target 6. So for all these decades of all this ecological stewardship, we've had lots of ongoing invasive weed management in our natural habitats. We have a program called the San Francisco Weed Management Area, which is one of dozens across California. Each county has its own weed management area administered by the state. So this allows us to work together within our regions to get funding and manage invasive weeds. Target 7, reduce pollution risks. So we've had quite a few programs related to cutting pollution and reducing toxics. Our Public Utilities Commission, which is our power, water, and sewer, they have, of course, a pollution prevention program with really robust water testing and lots of programs to keep our waters clean. And then the department where I work, Environment, has a toxics reduction program and lots of programs and ordinances related to toxic chemicals and PFAS and plastics. And so a lot going on there. Target 8, minimize the impacts of climate change on biodiversity. So really, I would go back to invoking the 32 actions of our Climate Action Plan, Healthy Ecosystems chapter, and all the years of the ecological restoration of our natural habitats to create greater resilience within our local biodiversity, and installation of local native plant gardens throughout the city. So it's not just in the parks and natural areas, but within the built environment where we're really trying to promote biodiversity and minimize the impacts to our local species from climate change as it comes. And then, and then, of course, target 11. Again, I would just invoke our Healthy Ecosystems chapter of our Climate Action Plan. And this is an example of several projects that have been really about coastal resilience. So this is the future of Treasure Island. The now is a lot less green. And so this is what the island will look like in about 15 years with the redevelopment, but also a huge amount of open space and wetlands and basically creating a resilient island for sea level rise. Many other examples, Chrissy Field Restoration, which was completed 25 years ago. Heron's Head, a living shoreline, was just built on the edge of the bay, and then adaptation at Ocean Beach. Okay, target 12. So this is kind of, I call it the uber urban target. So this kind of tries to capture everything we should be doing in cities. And so I've already given you a bunch of examples. And so similarly, among our 32 actions of our climate action plan, they touch on a lot of these different bullet points within target 12. And then, of course, the new Reimagining San Francisco collaborative that I mentioned is really going to be an opportunity to scale up our work and address some of these targets. And we've had a few other programs and plans over the years that have also been relevant here. And so within our Reimagining San Francisco new collaboration, these are the 6 desired outcomes, including 30 by 30 is our top, and then biodiverse corridors, natural lands management being fully resourced, everybody having access to nature. So these really map pretty closely to sort of the bullet points in target 12. Target 14, integration of biodiversity into policies and development across all sectors. So again, we have a lot of policy development that we want to do to implement the actions in our climate action plan, but we've already done a few things. We had a biodiversity resolution passed at our County Board of Supervisors in 2018. I convened a biodiversity interagency working group. We just passed some biodiversity guidelines, and I'm just going to show you quickly. So this was the San Francisco biodiversity policy passed by the Board of Supervisors, basically establishing local biodiversity as a citywide priority and a framework for interagency collaboration. And then we created these guidelines last year. And what's really great is that while they are guidelines, there is a piece of code that we created within the Environment Code, Chapter 7. We just updated it last year. And so it says that each municipal construction project, and this is just in the municipal sector, shall follow the City and County of San Francisco's biodiversity guidelines. So this is our most recent policy achievement, which is exciting, and we're trying to roll that out. Okay, I'm just going to give you a little story about a little green butterfly that I think exemplifies what we're trying to do here in San Francisco. This is called the green hair streak. It's a cute little butterfly, very small. It only flies in this little area in the kind of the western central part of San Francisco, as well as in the Presidio, which is up here in the upper left where the Golden Gate Bridge goes. And so there's kind of a little corridor. This is the dark green on the map from the other map I showed you. So this is what remains of our natural habitat. And so this gentleman here who's leading a tour, he conceived of kind of connecting the 4 natural areas that you see there on the right by planting habitat for the butterfly in the built environment. And so that's what we've done. This is part of the Public Works Department Street Parks program, where citizens can adapt basically a derelict piece of land in their neighborhood. And so this is a planting day back in, I think, 2008. And then the next year, literally a year later, it was blooming. Those are California poppies and all kinds of other native wildflowers. Sorry for the crummy quality of the photograph, but it makes the point that 1 year later, it's a thriving little ecosystem. And in fact, immediately we saw this little butterfly coming down from the local natural areas and breeding in these little habitats. So that's what we're trying to do all over the city. But that was kind of a great example of what we did over the last 15 years. Thank you for your time. I don't know if that was 7 minutes, but I think it might have been close.
Well done, Peter. Yeah, that's a lot of information packed into that presentation, and really inspiring examples. I really like how at the end you kind of really brought it down right? From these, global lofty agendas to something very concrete, such a beautiful example. And also really interesting to see how through your climate action plan, you've been able to approach, 17 out of the 23 GBF goals. So that's also really indicative of how local governments are able to integrate these agendas, right, and through their own planning and policy instruments take on both the climate and biodiversity challenges. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
And now, without further ado, I'm very pleased to give the floor to Marc Vilaur, General Director of Environmental and Natural Environment Policies of the Generalitat of Catalunya. So Marc, the floor is yours. Over to you to tell us a little bit about how in Catalonia you've been able to take on these dual challenges.
So thank you very much, Jordan, and thank you also to the organization. I think I'm really proud to be here in this with the opportunity to present a presentation with these huge interesting speakers and with more than 40 people listening to us. So thank you very much to ICLE and also to Regions 4. We want to express a bit how we work in Catalonia and also which was the final idea we have finally found. Catalonia started in this government to understand the environmental and the whole of the environmental crisis, a whole crisis, a crisis that is interlinked, it's complex, and we don't know exactly the consequences. So there are unknown consequences with high inertia and with long-term consequences. So from this base, the most important for us, that we already have 30% of our area protected, is to promote some cycles that maintain nature services. Because at the end, what we need is that nature makes its services to society, so society don't have to adopt it artificially, that it's much more expensive, it's much more dangerous, it's much more difficult to implement it in a holistic way. For this, the government has already two strategies. One is the Es Natura, the strategy on natural heritage, which with the 2018 law for climate change has a tax that funds 50% this strategy and 50% the climate change strategy, and which has the funds to implement some actions in order to prevent biodiversity loss. We have also the Catalan climate change adaptation strategy for 2030 that we approved last year, and which has the aim to adapt to climate change by looking directly to also biodiversity, with 80 operational goals directly to natural ecosystems. Preventing the coast destruction with natural-based solutions is a clear example, or managing the participation of municipalities and NGOs into the implementation of management in the Natura 2000 areas that we have this 31.8% of the surface of Catalonia managed. We need these actions to be a reality in the next years, and that's why these strategies are approved and working nowadays with an action plan for 2023 and 2026, and also with concrete goals and concrete actions which are evaluated. But this is interesting from a local and, in this case, regional point of view. But we have to assume that this is a global problem. So we have to take some actions in a different way. We decide that we need a political, technical vision, because the environmental problems are not only political problems, but are also, and especially, are problems that are based in science and based in a situation that is changing our biosphere. We need also a regional perspective. We need a perspective that understands that these global problems are not happening only in our region, but are happening in all the regions that are sharing same climates at least, and same conditions on biodiversity. And we understand that in Montreal, an innovative action has been approved. That is the call of all the partners in this common strategy, which are the subnational governments, cities and regions. And we understand that in this case, cities and regions are the ones that are more near to the local problems, to the exact problems. So we need to work from this perspective, because we have an urgency. We need a collective response, and we need some identifiable actions in order to solve and to create some consequences that are changing our inertias of losing biodiversity, increasing temperature in the atmosphere, and all these retro inertias that are becoming in this biophysical space we have. So we decided to impulse with our friends from California and some much more other regions, the MCAP, the Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership. The Mediterranean Climate Action Partnership basically is putting together all the areas that have Mediterranean climates. Because what in one space is happening and they are solving, it may be very plausible, something that it will become in the next years in some other space related with the same climate and with the same biodiversity problems. We put together the main part, the big main part of the whole of this 4% of climates, the Mediterranean climates that are in the Mediterranean basin. Also in the west of Northern America and Southern America, in the 14 degrees latitude north and south, and also in some parts of Australia and South Africa. So we understand that we need to work from this perspective because we don't have time. We have interlinked problems that are happening in the same moment in different areas, maybe with some years of difference and ones before the others. We have some ecosystems that are really similar, and some of these species can be a problem in other areas or beneficial to other regions, and we can understand much better how these problems, especially climate change, but also biodiversity loss, can be interlinked together from a perspective of understanding and acting through this global crisis. What have we done? We have worked from 1 year. I mean, I have to be exact. The first talks about this partnership became in Montreal, in fact. And from there, we have started to work in May last year, May 23, to develop this partnership that has become something real at the end in December in the COP28 of United Arab Emirates. But we understand that this partnership that has a very concrete, very specific scope, which is to find and share solutions and information about this combined crisis, has to become, in the next 3 years, in an action plan that we are working mainly in the 3 big problems that we have as regions. One is droughts, with several droughts now in Catalonia, but also in Western Cape. So, some problems in Chile. We have also wildfire problems, which have been happening in Australia and Western Cape, in most of the basin area, the Mediterranean, also in California. and now also becoming in Chile, and extreme heat. We know from the reports, the last reports of the European Union, that the Mediterranean basin is going to be one of the most affected by the climate change effects of the increase of temperature. And we know that this has implication also to humans, especially vulnerable populations. And we need to understand that this has to be treated before it's too late. So in a situation of emergency, we need to act before it's too late, and we need to give and learn information from the other regions that have the same problems happening in order to increase the fastness and the quality of our information, in order to advance learning in effective responses and analysis, a more clear analysis on what is happening, accelerate actions and policies to implement solutions to the mitigation and to adaptation and the resilience of the ecosystems in order to adapt and mitigate this global problem, and also especially elevate the awareness with innovative communications, amplifying through a common voice, with the idea that we will show that in Mediterranean areas, we need to act now, and especially strong, because we have a severe problem, more severe than other regions, especially because we have a very, very delicate bioregion. So I think that what I wanted to explain is, apart from having a global strategy in Catalonia interlinked between biodiversity and climate change, we understood that this cannot be threatened into an administrative barrier, but we have to treat it from a global perspective, because we need to find solutions this decade, and this needs to be done by sharing and increasing knowledge, policies, and actions. So hopefully we have been clear in explaining a bit the MCAP and also the policies of the government. And thank you very much for listening to us today. For further information, just you have my email here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Marc, for sharing with us the inspiring ways in which in Catalonia you've been able to integrate these agendas and also formulate this global partnership, right? We're looking at Mediterranean regions from around the world who share similar challenges in approaching both the climate and biodiversity crises. And I think without a doubt, that global partnership is going to be a very strong example, right, to other bioregions, right, to be able to maybe follow suit and follow that example and join forces, especially with regards to the kind of information and knowledge sharing that can happen in those spaces. So thanks very much. We've only got a few very short minutes left, so I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists who have shared today their inspiring stories and narratives and concrete actions on the ground on how they're attacking the dual crises of climate and biodiversity, to engage maybe in a very quick lightning round. So 1 minute responses. I know it's a challenge. I'll pose some questions and we'll go one at a time. And I'm going to ask you to please try and respect the 1 minute limit so that we can try and finish up on time. So I'll start with you, Jean. Your government in particular has participated in both the climate and biodiversity global processes at many high-level events throughout the years. In your view, what role should subnational governments play in bridging the gap between the global commitments made at the various climate and biodiversity COPs and their implementation on the ground?
Well, it's very, very important. And for that we have to work together. Cities and the example that Peter gave is great. So we really have to share those information also. And if I can answer one of the questions that we have with Gillian, what we did in Quebec to be able to have the budget and for biodiversity, we presented the nature as a solution for climate. And this is changing the communication that our politician can do, because everybody loves nature. So if we can change that communication with the citizen, and you know, they will be part of the solution as well, and this is what we need. So no more a place for competition here between region and cities. We have to work together, and also create some tools that we will share. For example, I'm going to present something at COP15 where we work with California, and we now have EI that help us to decide where are the best protected area in our territory. And this is something that that we can share. It was made with 6 universities, so that's the kind of thing that we have to share together. And please, no competition, let's work together.
That's a really great message, Sean. Thanks for that. Peter, over to you, and thanks, John, for pointing me in the direction of the Q&A. So we do have a question from Gillian Dick about nature-based solutions. How can we raise the profile of nature-based solutions, in particular amongst those who kind of relegate climate adaptation and mitigation only to sectoral issues of energy and transport, etc. So if you could maybe speak to that, and in particular the role of subnationals, right, in elevating nature-based solutions.
Yes, well, I mean, I actually answered a question about what inspires me in a little video exercise that we did a couple of years ago. And my answer was, I'm inspired by the fact that at different levels of government, jurisdictional levels, people are starting to get it, right? They're starting to get that there is this intersection between the two climate and biodiversity crises. And that in fact, nature-based solutions, restoring biodiversity, is a huge part of addressing climate change and is climate action. And so I feel like that is starting to happen. As I mentioned in my comments, certainly we're getting it here. We articulated that in our climate action plan, and California absolutely is getting it, and under the leadership of our Secretary of Natural Resources, Wade Crowfoot, who has just been amazing at the state level. And so I feel like it's happening, and we just have to keep up the drumbeat of educating everybody about how it's just as important. It's not the solution, right? Because we have to stop using fossil fuels, as we all know. But there are so many other benefits, and I actually call the carbon a co-benefit, right, of restoring biodiversity. The real benefits are to the species and the habitats and our connection to nature, right? Those are the benefits that I'm interested in. And then the carbon sequestration is a co-benefit as far as I'm concerned. So if we're doing all the work we want to do for nature, if we're achieving our goals for biodiversity, then we're making a huge impact on addressing climate change.
Great, thanks, Peter. And Mark, to finish things off. So we've been discussing a lot how, the integration of the climate and nature agendas on the ground. Could you maybe tell us what, in your view, are some of the key factors to ensure that these two policy frameworks can really truly be aligned on a subnational level?
We as administrations have very much think as the problems, the environmental problems, as different problems separated through them, and not interlinked. I think understanding the complexity and the interlinked problems in environment is key. And understanding that we are preserving nature, and I will take Peter's words there, understanding preserving nature and climate change and nitrogen and phosphorus cycles and land use change, etc., is not only a matter for charity or for managing an added value to our society, but we are fundamentally working on the sustainability of our future society. And understanding that, so that the problem is not how we manage every single indicator of what is going bad in our relationship with nature, and understanding that what we need to analyze is what are we doing, how are we acting with nature, and which is the value of what is nature giving to humans, and humans are changing when they change nature cycles. It's really important. So the focus is more on what we do than on how to modify the indicators of CO2 in the atmosphere or biodiversity of some species of birds or mammals. In some points, the importance is on how we act and how we manage the cycles of nature and our relationship with nature, so it's sustainable and we can guarantee the welfare of the future generations.
Thanks so much, Mark. I think that's a really strong finish. And on behalf of ICLE and all of the Cities with Nature and Regions with Nature partners, I would like to really thank all four of our speakers really here today for their wonderful interventions. Everyone who's listening in, we invite you to please register for the upcoming 2 sessions of this series. And I think just maybe tapping into the final messages from our panelists. Let's work together. Let's have our priorities straight, and let's move forward towards a common nature positive and climate resilient future. I think there's a lot that has been said today, and certainly we can, by combining our efforts and our agendas, make sure that the subnational voice is heard both at home and on the international stage. So thank you all again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the future sessions.
Okay, I see it's gone off again, John. Sorry. Make co-host. Okay. John is co-host. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.